Hi, I'm David Neff, and I'm here with Pastor Brian Worth in Paramount, California. And I'm really excited to have Brian on this episode because he's got a very, very powerful testimony, and he's pastoring five, am I right? 5 different churches now in the area. And the first time I saw Brian, he had 2. And this has only been in a couple of years now. He has 5. So God is doing things here in Paramount, Long Beach, Carson, Whittier, Merced. That's up the road a piece.
That's 5 hours.
Yeah. So I met Brian indirectly as a result of my going down to the Twin Towers.
Twin Towers, ain't no joke.
Correctional Center, downtown Los Angeles. One of the co-chaplains down there recommended his Chapel of Change for one of our inmates that was getting out, and I wanted to we don't want these inmates to return. We want them to get into a good church and then start to grow and be a blessing to the community. And so I went to a service down here, and I was very impressed with what I saw, and so I knew that to have Brian on here would be a blessing to everyone. So Brian, I'm going to let you start just sharing whatever you want to talk about.
Thanks, David, for having me on your show here. I appreciate it. Haven't seen you for like 2 years. I remember having a conversation with you on Long Beach Boulevard.
Yes, sir. Atlantic Boulevard.
No, it was Long Beach.
Long Beach?
Yeah,
You're right.
He's
the local,
street,
not me.
Yeah, on the street, Long Beach Boulevard.
Yes, sir.
The LBC at our Long Beach campus. Yeah, as David was saying, my name is Brian, and I serve as the lead pastor of Chapel of Change Christian Fellowship. We're actually one church in 5 locations. That's our language that we use. We're one church in 5 locations: Paramount, Long Beach, Carson, Whittier, and the city of Merced, which is about 5 hours from here. And the Lord is just doing an awesome work through our church. We're reaching a lot of people, reaching a lot of broken lives. You know, our generation, David, is broken. Our generation is being bombarded with depression, discouragement, despair. And we really feel that the Lord has called us to minister fresh hope to our generation. And He's doing that through us through different means. But we started our church about 7 years ago in 2012. And the work has just exploded. We've seen over 1,000 people surrender their life to the Lord Jesus Christ at our altars. That's just at our altars. And it's just been a powerful ride. And the unique thing about our story is that I'm not a seminary graduate. I didn't graduate from USC or UCLA. I proudly state everywhere I go, David, I like to say, I am a product of prison chaplains. That's what I am. I'm a product of prison chaplains. So you might be saying, what does that mean, right? Like, what does that mean? Well, this Monday, July 1st, will be my 11-year anniversary of freedom from a prison life sentence. You heard that right. Not 5 years, 10 years, but a prison life sentence. So this Monday, I'm going to celebrate. I'm going to celebrate on the basketball court. I may play a little golf. I'm going to have dinner with my family because we're going to celebrate freedom. We feel like the children of Israel that got delivered out of 400 years of Egyptian slavery. And one of the funny things about our story, David, is that I started our church on parole. Wow. I was on high-power parole when I started the church. About 2 years into our church, after I got off parole, I turned to the congregation and I said, hey, I have something to confess. I started this church while I was on parole, but it's okay, I'm off parole now. It was a little too late, right? But anyways, that's one of the uniqueness about our story of Chapel of Change. I grew up in the harbor area of Los Angeles, Long Beach area, and it was the gang life that eventually ripped my family apart. My oldest brother was shot and killed at the age of 15 years old. 15 years old, he was shot in the face by a gang member. He died, we buried him. I was looking at a picture of his funeral, and you can see me there. I think I was about 7 or 8 years old. And you see me kind of on the edge of my seat, and you can see this, I don't know, anxiety. I'm actually looking at my mom because the picture shows my mom putting the rose or flower over the casket, and it's my mom's firstborn, 15-year-old boy who got killed. So I'm really looking at my mom. I'm 7 years old. You don't ever want to see your mom cry, 7 years old. But my brother got killed at the age of 15 years old by gang violence. It was the gang culture that ripped my family apart. 2 other brothers got shot on separate occasions multiple times, but they survived. And around the age of 12 years old, I made one of the most terrible decisions of my life when I joined the neighborhood gang. And I got jumped into the neighborhood, and they told me years later, David, that I swore when I was a little kid that I would never be a gang member. This is what they told me years later. I swore I'd never be a gang member. But the sad thing, that's exactly what happened. My house was like the local kickback house for all the gang members. And so they would feed me, because my mom at that time was like partying, going to bars and stuff like that. So I'd be left alone at my house at various times. And the gang members would feed me. They would give, I would like when they got high because they would give me money. They'd be nice, you know. And back then, rock cocaine came onto the scene. And I remember my house, man, there would be like 15 people in the bathroom, and I'm a little kid, like, what are you doing in the bathroom, 15 people, right? And I learned later that they're smoking rock cocaine, right? And somehow I'd sneak in the bathroom or I'd look, and they're on the ground looking, you know, and I learned later they're looking for pebbles or whatever that they dropped. Yeah. Remember that? They're looking for things they dropped, and then not too long after that, PCP kind of hit the scene. And so I started seeing these gang members smoking PCP. I didn't know it was PCP because I was young at that time. But they would talk to trees. They'd be on the grass like this, laid out talking. And I was little. I liked it because they gave me money. They're not, when you're high, most people, not all people, I can't presume all people, but a lot of people that are high on drugs are nice. At least the little kids I was. But so I grew up in that culture. And eventually I joined the neighborhood gang. My life went on a downward spiral. By the time I was 14 years old, the devil tried to kill me for the first time when rival gang members opened fire on me. I was on Main Street, and I was in my brother. Back then, the lowrider cars were Regals and Monte Carlos. And my brother had a Regal, and I was in his car, and we're about to take off, and I just heard some gunshots. I don't know, about 5 times. And then I heard a zing, and my left arm flew up, and I yelled out just instinctively. I yelled out, "I'm hit! I'm hit!" And my brother took off, and he went to the Harbor General Hospital. I was hit on my left arm. You see that scar right there? Went in through here, came out through there. I was 14 years old, just turned 14 years old, November 5th, bro. My birthday's in October, so 16th, and I got shot November 5th. Why do I know them dates, right? There's certain numbers you never forget, like your prison number. They say you never forget your prison number. That's a whole different other story. So I got shot, and I'm in this room. I'm thinking I'm a gang member, David, right? Like I'm 14 years old. I got a football jersey on, which is like gang member wear. And because of my age, they put me in a room filled with Winnie the Pooh cartoon characters on the wall. You know what I mean? I have all these cartoon baby characters. And reality's starting to hit out. You're not a gangster, dude. When they put you in a room full of Winnie the Pooh, and you're not a gangster no matter how tough you are. Anyways, I was in that room for about 30 minutes, and I heard a familiar voice, crying in the hallway. And as that voice got closer, I said to myself, oh my God, that's my mom. And my mom came in with tears in her eyes, and she was just glad that I was alive, because I didn't realize at the moment, but my oldest brother died in that same hospital about 9 years prior to that. And on the way to the hospital, my mom didn't know if I was dead or alive, so she had that anxiety.
Were there just the 2 of you?
What?
From your mom? Just 2 boys?
No, my mom, I come from a broken family.
Okay.
So it's always hard to explain, right?
Yeah, okay.
I got brothers that are not my brothers, sisters that are not my sisters. Right. It's hard to explain. When you come from a broken family, it's just hard to explain.
I was just thinking she's coming to the hospital, she lost her one, now she's gonna lose her.
No, I had several other siblings as well. And so,
sorry.
It's all right. It's always confusing when you come from a broken lifestyle. But thank God for His restoration. But anyways, about a month later, I got released from the hospital. Sad thing was, I didn't heed the warnings of God. I didn't heed the warnings. God gives us warnings, man.
Yeah.
He gives us warnings. He was giving me warnings. I could have been dead. I should have been dead. That's not the only time I got shot at. I got shot at a couple times. I got shot at to the point where I seen bullets. Like one time, it was during the broad daylight. I seen a bullet zing my way, like, and hit my car. But it was crazy because I seen the bullet go like this. Zzz, pap. And so my point is, God gives us warnings. I didn't heed the warnings. And eventually, regretfully, I went in and out of jail for small stuff. But then at the age of 16 years old, I found myself arrested for the last time. Regretfully, I became responsible for the death of another gang member. My friend and I were responsible for the shooting death of one of our rival gang members. In the late 80s and early 90s in the LA County, it was the height of gang activity. People were getting shot left and right. My houses were getting shot at, you know, with little kids and stuff. It was just, the culture was very tense. And I got sucked into that. And the very next morning of my crime, I heard a large bang on my door. I thought it was my grandma waking me up to go to school. Very next morning, but it wasn't her. Guess who it was?
The police
It
department.
was the police department. You know why? Because they're professionals. They know their stuff. The very next morning, can you believe that? And I'm living in a whole totally other city than the crime happened. Yet they're knocking on my door the very next morning. Brian, we're coming to get you. Wow, they banged down the door. They put their gun to my head. They handcuffed me. They begin to escort me through the living room. And I come from a family where my grandma, my aunts, and my 39 cousins all live in one house. So that morning was one of the most shameful mornings of my life, because in the corner there was like a large portion of my family sitting down. And I can still see my grandma crying, and right today it haunts me. Her face haunts me. I can see my grandma crying with tears in her eyes. What did you do? What did you do? And I just put my head down, and it was filled with shame. And I continued to walk, and they put me into the cop car, and the detective came in. My life was over. I was 16 years old. I fell for the lie of the streets, which is the lie of the devil. And the Bible says the wages of sin is death. That's good for a 16-year-old as it is for a 60-year-old, right?
Amen.
And I fell for his lie. Now he's giving me my payment, which ultimately is going to be a life sentence in prison. So the detective comes, he drives me off. I look out into the streets, people walking or going to school, and the detective turned around and he slapped me with his words. He turned around and he said, "You better take a good look at them streets, boy, because you'll never see them again. You're never going to see them again." See, that don't make me want to cry right now, bro. I'm holding in tears, David. Right? By the way, you could read all this in my book, Young Man Arise.
Okay.
You can get my book online, Young Man Arise, Brian Worth. But those words slapped me in my face, and at that time I had a chip on my shoulder. I didn't want to let nobody tell me what to do, so I stared deeper out into the streets. And for those guys walking and going to work or wherever, it was the start of another normal day, but for me, it was the beginning of the end. I got booked for murder and one attempted murder, sent me to Los Virginos Juvenile Hall, got put in a room for 3 days, still didn't wake up, got kicked out of juvenile hall, got transferred 17 years old, Dave, to where? The LA County Jail. 17 years old, get transferred to the Los Angeles County Jail. I heard horror stories about the LA County Jail. They said if you could survive the LA County Jail, you could survive anywhere. The first 5 minutes I walk into the LA County Jail, I hear the siren going off, I hear, get down, and I look up, and a sheriff is dragging somebody across the room by their hair, like a mop. This is the first 5 minutes of me being there. Like I said, wow, I have arrived, right? So now I go to the LA County Jail, I'm on the tier, it's a hallway, but in there it calls tiers of the worst juveniles of LA County.
The worst of the worst.
Worst of the worst. And you know what? I'm not even like, I'm portraying like I'm this gang member. I'm portraying tough. But look at me. How could I look tough? I was trying to look tough. You gotta try to look tough. But you can't. When you look like me, you can't look tough. I got no tattoos. I got a baby face now, but imagine at 17 years old, I look like I was 10, bro. But you gotta try to look tough in that environment, you know what I mean? Anyways, I was with the worst of the worst. People were coming back with double life, triple life, 50 years to life, but you never really feel that pain until it happens to you. Never really feel it. Sometimes you see the news and you see somebody get sentenced to death, or you see somebody get sentenced to life, and you look at them and say, dude, why aren't you like breaking down? Like, why aren't you just like start shaking and all that. It's a whole different, like, you do not know how that feels until it happens to you, man. And the day came when it was my turn in the Compton courthouse, in a room full of people with my dad towards the front. The judge hit her hammer and she sentenced me to life in prison. And that was a mercy. That was a mercy. The sentence that I got was a mercy, Dave, believe it or not. I don't often say that, but it was a mercy. And I was numb. I was numb. I didn't do nothing. A gentleman in his 40s. I was 17 years old, so 40 years old was old for me back then. Sorry. Right? And this guy, 40 years old, he steps forward. He gets sentenced to 3 years in prison, and he begins to break down and cry, bro. He begins to sob, like right there. He's sobbing. And I didn't tell him nothing, but inside, I'm screaming at this guy, like, what are you doing? Why are you crying? Didn't you just see what happened to me? Why are you crying off 3 years? And I couldn't understand his pain, but soon I would. They took me to the LA County Jail. After all the rides I had on that county bus, all of a sudden, this last ride, the sheriffs played music in the bus. And guess what type of music they're playing? They're playing oldies. So here I am, got a window view, the last time I'm going to see society, and they're playing oldies, and right, just the whole cloud of depression just bombarded me, and they put me in my one-man cell in the LA County Jail, and I'm in that one-man cell, David, and I'm crushed by despair, crushed. Like, there's nothing, I always say this, I say this everywhere I go across the nation, there's nothing worse than a teenager full of dreams, energy, and aspirations slammed down in a one-man cell, condemned to die a slow death in prison. That's the closest thing I can compare to being sentenced to life, is you die, but you don't die, because you got to get up and face it every morning. And I learned that from experience. So I was in that one-man cell, I was crushed, bro, crushed by it. And all of a sudden, I began to regret every time I didn't go home. I began to regret every time I didn't go to church. My dad tried to save me. He put me in a Christian school, bro. I don't often talk about this. I went to a Christian school at the time of my arrest. Although it was summer school, so summer school was out, right? During the regular season or whatever that is, school year, I was at a Christian school. I don't talk about that a lot. But you could be arrested for murder and go to a Christian school at the same time. That's kind of crazy. I said that to say this. My parents, they tried to help me. They did all that they could to help me, but it didn't work. And so here I was in that one-man cell. My face was pressed against my knees, and my whole short life flashed before my eyes, and I was just crushed. I was crushed. I feel like crying right now thinking about it, but I'm not. You know what I'm saying? And I heard a noise in the hallway. Tell me how much time, just let me know how much time I got. But I heard a noise in the hallway, the tears, so I got up, and I put my face against the cold bars, and I looked down the hallway, and it was an elderly man, Caucasian elderly man, coming down the tier, passing out Christian literature. He kept coming down the tail. You know, they would push little carts.
Right,
they had
that's
books.
what we have.
Yeah, you know, you have them still.
They would use the tray.
Yes,
and they'd kneel down and pray with them.
Yes, he's this old man. He's pushing a cart. And I just got sentenced to life in prison. I don't want to talk to nobody. I'm mad at the world.
There are plenty like you still down there.
Okay. I'm mad. Like, I don't want to talk. But this old man, he like barged into my darkness. So I got up out of my bunk and I said to myself, you know what? I'm going to drop the bomb on this old man and see what he does, right? So I get up and I said, Mister, I just got sentenced to life in prison. What in the world can you do for me? What can you do for me, right? That's what I do. Thinking he's going to budge. But to my surprise, he doesn't budge. He doesn't budge. And I like to stress this, that this was an old man, Caucasian old man, not an ex-gang member, didn't have no tattoos, he wasn't an ex-biker, right? But he had the gospel pumping through his veins, and he had the courage enough to bombard the darkness of prison to share the glorious gospel of Jesus Christ. You don't have to be an ex-gang member, you don't have to be an ex-biker, an ex-outlaw, no. You just got to be fired up for the Lord. That's it, you got to be fired up for the Lord. So I told this guy I just got sentenced to life in prison, 17 years old. I got pimples all over my face. My life is ruined, bro. It is over. And it's the height of gang activity. 1992 was the highest murder rate in LA County. And this old man, he did something to my surprise. he reached through the darkness of my bars and he grabbed my hand and he said a prayer, quiet prayer, not even a loud. I'm a loud guy. I'm a full gospel Pentecostal type of individual. But let me tell you something. There are some prayers that are not loud, they're quiet, but they're powerful. And this guy,
be still my soul.
Yeah, this guy didn't say no loud prayer. He said a quiet yet powerful prayer over me in the name of Jesus. That brother prayed over me. That's all he did. He didn't try to shove the gospel. I don't remember anything else. All I remember is the prayer. And he walked away. I don't remember ever seeing him again. But a couple days later, I woke up in the LA County jail, and I had this realization. God gave me a realization. Brian, sooner or later, unless you die first, you're going to wake up in a prison yard. You're going to be old, you're going to have gray hair, and you're going to look up to the sky, and you're going to say, man, I wish I would have gave my life to the Lord when I was younger. God gave me this realization. It wasn't even a revelation. It was just a realization that one day I was going to wish I served the Lord when I was young. You could either die, you die first, or you wake up when you're 80 years old in prison saying, why didn't I give my life to the Lord? You're going to pound your chest to God.
Now you mentioned when I heard you preach about your grandmother kept praying for you, I believe this is what you said, and then finally a prison chaplain led you to the Lord in jail.
Well, I had a series of chaplains who helped me out. So in my journey, it was like a marathon. One chaplain to another chaplain to another chaplain. So my current pastor, Chaplain Leonard Wilson Banks, is the one that discipled me when I started to do my time. But it was a series of volunteer chaplains and even women chaplains. So when I said that, I don't know which one I referred to.
Right.
But it was a series of chaplains. Like, it takes a village to raise the Christian, especially a broken Christian.
Yeah,
you know
that's
what I mean?
true.
So I woke up in that jail cell, and when God gave me that realization that sooner or later I was going to want to serve him, I said, I'm not going to wait. I'm going to let the next man wait, but I'm not going to wait. I was 17 years old, 18 years old, and in the LA County jail. LA County jail, the worst of the worst.
This is Men's Central Jail, right? Now, there's Men's Central Jail.
I was 3,300. Where's that at? 3,300.
It's on, we got Men's Central Jail and Twin Towers right next to each other.
I think it's Men's Central, because
Right
3,300. We're 7,000.
Bouchard, off of Bouchard?
I was 17 years old. I'm in, them days are like haze.
I think it was Men's Central Jail. That's the old LA County jail.
But they had an older one before that, though, because they had HOJJ before I went to this one. You remember HOJJ?
No.
All right,
I'm Johnny come lately.
Okay, that's old school. I'll take you really back. Before my time, right in between my time, they had HOJJ, because one time. So it is the Men's Central that I'm talking about.
Right.
Because once I went to the Men's Central, they just closed down HOJJ.
Okay.
Right? So that's the whatever, you look that up. Right?
Okay.
So this was 3,300 in the LA County jail. I get down on my knees and I surrender my life to the Lord Jesus Christ. It wasn't even a prayer. I didn't even know how to pray. It was a grunt. It was a sigh. I was so broken, right? It was like, Lord, have mercy on me. Right? Help me out, right? Lord, have mercy on me. And I like to believe, man, that the mercy of God, the compassion of God exploded in my cell, because that was a turning point in my life. The crazy thing is, I got up after that prayer and I looked around and ain't nothing physically changed. Right? Like the cell door didn't open up and the judge didn't pop up and said, oh, it's time for you to go home now. No.
There was no earthquake.
There was no earthquake. But there was something that sparked in my heart. The change happened in my heart. And as I fed that flame, because the Lord began to give me a desire to study His Word. He began to give me a desire to pray. I began to study, and the Lord gave me a vision. He said, Brian, if you serve me and don't give up, eventually I will break you free from this prison life sentence to impact the world with the gospel. The Lord messed around and gave me a vision, boy. If you ever catch a vision in your darkest day, if you ever catch a vision, you may be broken right now, but if you ever catch a vision from the Lord, the world better watch out. And anyways, the Lord gave me this vision, and I began to prepare for that vision. And the rest of my story, you're going to have to either go on the internet or read my book, Young Man Arise. But let me fast forward. This Monday is going to be 11 years since God had a sit-down meeting with Arnold Schwarzenegger, then governor of California, a.k.a. the Terminator. And I don't know what God told Arnold Schwarzenegger, but I like to believe he told him what he told Pharaoh 4,000 years ago. Let my people go. Because in 2008, after 16 years, when everybody told me I was going to die in prison, I had people laugh at me. I've been in some cold situations in prison. I've seen people die, right? When everybody said I would never, when people used to laugh and say, Brian, why are you getting your GED in prison? You got a life sentence that don't make sense. Why are you getting your GED? You got a life sentence. But I had to ignore the negativity and just pound away, pound away. You know what part of my vision was, Dave? Part of my vision was I'm going to do so much good that someday somebody's going to peel back the ceiling of prison and say, somebody in here needs to go home, and you're it. That was my kind of personal kind of vision. But anyways, in 2008, God busted me free from prison, set me free, restored me to my family. Today, I have a beautiful family. I'm celebrating in a couple of weeks 22 years of marriage. That's a whole other story. I got 3 beautiful kids. I pastor one of the most on-fire churches in the galaxy, to the glory of God.
Now, Brian, I can't imagine that. I'm sure the folks listening to this can't imagine you have a church that's actually on fire. No, we know it's on fire. I've been in there, and I'm thankful that you took the time to share this story. I appreciate it a lot. So, if you like what you see, give us a like. If you want to describe and subscribe. And God bless you. Until the next time.